Hey, good morning. Welcome to the new Service Geek podcast. I am your host, Frank Hernandez. I hope you guys can hear me okay. Uh, we are live. There's about a minute delay on social media on certain channels due to the streaming. But I thought we start out Monday morning um, with some good news and some training and stuff that gets our week just started out right. Okay. And I got a couple of things that I want to go over about the new Service Geek podcast. Why the Service Geek podcast? Well, I've been in service industries my entire life. I don't know if I got good audio from everybody. If you're there, let me look at the chats. People are here. Hey, good morning. Let's see here. Good. So somebody's on right on time. Let me know if you're actually hearing me well, if I need to talk louder. Um, let's take a look here. I go back over here. Give me a second. I'm just making sure I can see everybody's. Yep, sounds fine. All right, awesome. So we're on. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, you know, everywhere like Visa, everywhere you want to be, we're live this morning. And talking about the Why the Service Geek podcast, we're doing an addition to the pest control industry, which I've been in for the last 10 years doing a podcast. Started way back in 2014. We started the podcast coincidentally at the same time I started my new brand, the Nature Pest brand. After 7 years of being in the pest control industry, I launched that brand, which will kind of join into what's been going on in the marketplace today. And a message I got last night, I think it was about 10 o'clock at night. I was down here working. And no, it was actually earlier than that, around 8 o'clock. I was down here working and, doing some testing for some AI software that I'm trying to train to do our writing for our blog, where we can auto generate um, content for our blog and for our pages that we're creating. And I'm trying to hire admins in virtual assistants in South America to do a lot of this for us, because it's the reality. If you're running an in-house agency, ad agency, which is our own marketing agency in-house for our brand, and then our brands that we're doing, Pest Geek Podcast, Service Geek, Service Geek Academy, that's coming together, and a couple of other businesses that I'm starting this year in the service field that complements our pest control business, because what I do is find things that nobody wants to do. And if nobody wants to do it, there's enough market for us to be in a 1% market, where we don't have to be in a 20%, 50% growth market. We just need to find new avenues of growth, to be able to do new things that people don't want to do. When I started Nature Pest, and I had the idea in 2007 to do an eco-friendly pest control business, everybody laughed at me. I've told this story a couple hundred times. Everybody laughed at me. The pest control industry laughed at me. Suppliers laughed at me. Manufacturers laughed at me. Everybody says you're nuts. It can never work. Here we are, 17 years later, with a brand with 3 employees, and I'm looking to grow it. And we're 13% of the market wants what we have. The reality is only about 1 to 2%, or about 20 to 30% of the people that call me can actually afford it. And I don't care to sell a higher price service. I'm not in a business where I'm competing against the small guy, or I'm competing against the big companies. I decided that I was going to create a niche for myself, not necessarily build the largest brand, but create a niche for myself that I could make really good income with the least amount of work. I mean, that's the reality. That's the dream. We want to sell all our product for the maximum amount of money that we can in any market. And then we want to be able to sell it to as many people as possible. And we want not to have to compete in the bloody ocean of pricing that it seems to be the trend with all the large brands. Is a race to the bottom. And I know all about a race to the bottom. Before I was 24 years old, living in Columbus, Ohio, and I went to go work for a glass manufacturer, the largest aftermarket glass manufacturer in the world. I went to go work for them as a contract price negotiator. My job was to call people after the fact, call independent glass shops after they installed the glass and said, oh, by the way, we bought the contract for the managed glass claims for the insurance companies, and you now have to send your invoices to us. And by the way, here's the price that we're going to pay you for that glass. Just like, a laboratory, a doctor deals with an insurance company where there's a price they're going to bill the insurance company, and there's a price that the insurance company is going to pay. And that was my job. And I became really good at it to the tune of about, negotiating about $13 million a year in glass claims across, 26 states east of the Mississippi. And then being part of a $2 billion merger of the competitor that we beat out. And why am I telling this? Because that was bloody. Because I was doing $13 million a year on a 5% profit. As a matter of fact, 80% of my contracts lost money. Only 20% of my contracts, which were with the larger companies, that the larger auto glass companies that installed it for us, we made money on. But we squeezed the little guy almost out of existence. And it got to the point where after 4 or 5 years of doing this, I had enough. I was burned out, literally burned out. I had no desire to go to work the next day. As a matter of fact, I actually felt sick all the time. I didn't realize it at the time, being 27, that I was burned out and that I didn't want to go into work and do this anymore. And I literally felt sick. I felt like I had the flu. It was 7 o'clock in the morning, alarm clock, 6 o'clock rang. I stayed in bed 8, 9, 10, did not get out of bed. And finally, I didn't want to go to work anymore. And about 2 weeks later, I turned in my resignation after that merger, after all of that. I mean, I went in and I was flying up to Chicago to pick up the contracts from the competitor that we just bought out, and picking up all of the contracts for all my region, comparing them. And I was 15 to 20%. I was ruthless. But it took a toll on me. It took a toll because at 24, I became a believer in Christ. And everything that I was doing was going against my core, my being, of taking small businesses and just basically putting them out of business for no other reason than to save the insurance company money and negotiate contracts for multi-millions of dollars to basically save insurance company money. That was the only purpose. There was no purpose. We didn't make anything. We didn't create anything. I didn't do anything of value for society. I basically beat you up to get the price down so that glass claims would go down so that insurance prices could stay lower. I mean, that was about it. There was nothing, the industry was a huge industry. And I could care less about whether you could afford. I mean, I remember glass shops telling me, look, I buy my glass from you. I'm buying it at 80% off retail. You're asking me to sell it to you at 85% off with no labor and no installation kit. I said, how would I make money if I can't even buy the glass at the price you're asking me to sell it to you? And my attitude was, if you want to be on our network and you want to sell your auto glass to this insurance company, you will do it at that price. This is why when you hear me talking about what I know what companies do, I was in that arena. I mean, I know what corporate does. I know when you sit in the C-suite. I was sued once a week by a glass installer, a large conglomerate, at least once a week. I was named in a lawsuit. I know what it's like to sit and be deposed in front of corporate counsel and about the contract that I negotiated that they were trying to attack me for, because they sued the company and they sued me. Luckily, corporate counsel defended me, but I was involved in that. And, yeah, that was 20 something years ago. And I decided that I was going to do something different. And I started working for small companies. Doing something was a little funner to sell than what I was doing. So I get a call last night from Ben. I get a message that says, "Hey man, I want to ask you a question about growth and about the reality of where it's at." He says, so in 2020, we grew 33%, 37% in 21, 35% in 22. And last year, our growth dropped to 7%. A big portion of our growth was based on advertising with Google Ads. Last year, Google Ads, just like the floor dropped out. I was curious if you knew about the economy and something a lot of companies experienced last year. Yeah. A lot of companies experienced it. Okay, let's just look at the reality for a minute that we fail to understand, that every small business fails to understand, and a lot of them cannot do it. And that is when the economy is bad, okay, the large companies that can afford to buy real estate, buy stocks, buy everything, people with the money will buy when everything is low. Or they will simply sink more money into, because understand, if you're the top 5 companies in a market nationwide, you're nationwide companies, you've got billions of dollars at stake. And what do you have to do? You have to put out more advertising to make up for the shortfall. Thus, something that the small business like you and I can't do. We can't say, well, you know what? We're going to have to double our advertising budget this year. Where do we get it from? Okay. But when you're buying ads for 10, 15, 20, let's say 30 branches in a state, it costs you the same amount to buy for 20 branches than it does to buy you for what? When you say we got to go and take our budget of marketing from 10% that we were doing, 15%, now we got to take it up to 25. Where are we going to get it? The only way to get it is to squeeze it out of the employee. There's no other way to go. You either drop the labor rate, you replace your most expensive people with cheap people. And this is why the industry is in turmoil, why there's such a huge amount of turnover, why they can't keep people, and why their customers are leaving in droves coming to us, is because they have to lower the price somewhere. They can't lower it with the customer, so they lower the cost of labor to increase the amount of advertising. Now they're buying way more advertising, and you can't afford to compete on a bid system where you're bidding for the top keywords and they're outbidding you every single time. That's the way Google Ads works. So this is what happens in the real world. When the economy gets bad for the little guy can't afford to compete. And this is why when somebody calls me and says, I'm calling you for this, and then they're beating me up about my price, I know they're not my customer immediately. Why? Because if you're Googling what I sell, you have to find me. You have to really want it, because what I sell is a niche. So you can't just go there and say, I want this, because I'm not competing in the same bloody ocean. By the way, you guys need to read the book, Blue Ocean Strategy. Okay. Blue Ocean Strategy is one of those books that really impacted me, and how do I create a blue ocean for myself and not have to swim. What everybody told me was nuts, is because everybody wants to swim in the same ocean of competition. What I wanted to do is create a niche for myself, that I wasn't always competing with the same people, not even my local friends. I mean, I'm not competing with the baseboard jockey. For those of you who don't know what a baseboard jockey is, a guy that just sprays baseboards, That's all he does. That's it. There's nothing else. I wasn't competing with that, nor am I competing with the large brands because they can't do what I do. You know, if you're in the industry and you listen to Bobby Corrigan, which is the nation's, probably the world's number one rodentologist. He's the foremost expert on rodent biology, rodent behavior, rodent control. What he's been preaching for years, that I've listened to him, is that pest proofing and exclusion is rodent control, right? Okay, now here's the absolute truth on that is absolutely true. Okay, the percentage of rodent control that you can sell through rodent exclusion is about less than 10% of your clients. Why? Because when a client pays $300, $400, $500, $600, $700, $800 in a year for rodent control, and he needs to repair a property that's going to cost $3,000 to $8,000 to repair, he says, so who cares? In the next 10 years, I'm not going to be in this house anyway. What do I care? I'd rather just pay the percentage. And a lot of people will not pay for preventive maintenance. They just want the problem managed, and that's it. So even though that Bobby Corrigan is 100% right that exclusion is pest control, very few companies can actually sell it. So what do? I just go into market and I know where the areas are that people have continuous problems. And if I knock on 10 doors, I will probably sell one. If I knock on 100 doors, I will sell 1 to 3 of these services that are highly priced at $2,000, $3,000. And that's where I make my money on the niche. You got to go find something in your marketplace that you can sell that nobody wants to do, but then you got to be able to sell the crap out of it. And what happens with 70 to 80% of the people in the pest control industry is they're not salespeople. They're not marketers. You know, for him to be growing at that rate on Google Ads is impressive. And then I give him my honest answer of what I experienced. I said, I was lucky. I thought I was actually going to go in at about 15%. When we analyzed our numbers at the end of the year, we were shocked that we were at 21%. I mean, I was tickled to death. But it was a result of me going after these difficult services that are hard to sell, ignore the low price sale that people were calling me and say, I'm done with apartments. People calling me and wanting me to do their apartments for $65, which we never did. But now if you call me for a German roach service, we start out at $359 for 2 services, and we're at $459 at $159 per visit for each additional. 80% of the Hispanic population who live in apartments turn us down. And I said, I feel terrible for them, but at the end of the day, I'm not in the money losing business. I'm in the money making business. I got to have profit to grow, to pay my people. So I don't have to pay a technician minimum wage or just above to keep him there, where I can pay the best technician and get the best people and pay them the most money. I have to sell my services at the highest price. And what I see it across the board on every single buddy that I consulted, I get into all the groups, I look at everything. Everybody is underpricing themselves. Yet everybody's talking a good game online. The thing is that online, only the people that are actually crushing it are talking about it, which is about 10%. So he says, I would ask in the group, in the pest control group or groups, but some guys would just claim they kill it every single year, no matter what. That's the hype that we're getting in any business, that you get into the groups and is that 4% to 10% that are actually crushing it. Or, if you start out at this year, this is your first year, I would expect 1,000% plus growth because you started from zero based budgeting. In your second year, I would expect a 100 easily percent growth, double the growth. But after year 2 and year 3, the average guy is at 6%, because you can't tell me you're self-employed for the last 20 years, have no employees, and you're still growing at 20% a year, at a certain point, you're done because you can't grow anymore. What is the average self-employed? By the way, if you don't know this statistic, go look it up. 70% of all small businesses in America are self-employed. 70% of all small businesses in America are self-employed with no employees other than themselves. What is the first thing a technician does when he goes from self-employment to being from being employed to being self-employed? As he grows enough, but now he can't handle the work. He's never hired, he's never interviewed, he doesn't know. Why don't we talk about hiring? Let's talk about hiring. Here's the reality. What you're going to end up doing is, you said, I can't pay that guy what I pay myself to have him. I got to pay myself less. I'm not going to pay myself. Ego kicks in. Says, I'm not going to pay myself less and pay him more. For years, I paid myself less than I was paying my employees. But mind you, I got paid also on profit, which I pay lower taxes on. I get to write off my vehicle, my personal vehicle. I get to write off a lot of things that I do that the average employee is never going to be able to do. So yes, I was paying myself on paper less. I was actually making more. But I still paid myself less. And I paid my employee more for years because I needed to hire competent people, and I couldn't afford to hire people at $10 to $12 an hour back then, where what the market was at. I had to pay people $15 plus just to get them. What you're going to do is you're going to hire yourself. You're going to hire a helper, right? My first job that I ever had where I was a helper, I was 16 years old helping this guy installing tile. Okay. He hired only, and he had no employees ever. He never grew the company. He was, until he died, I think. He's probably dead now. He would just go for helper, just somebody to help him with the work, but he was never a tech that he could leave. And I was 16 years old. And what the funny part is that after about a week working for him, he would leave me alone because he saw that I could get it done, install it right. And then he would leave, and I'd come back and that bathroom was finished in a couple of hours. He would take a couple of hours off to go do whatever he did, and he'd come back. Most of you will hire helpers, but the problem is you can't leave them alone, because they're people who have never ever worked independently of themselves. They've always had to have a supervisor, and they're not highly skilled people. If they were highly skilled people, they would already be a technician working at another company, making a lot more money instead of working for you for minimum wage. Whatever minimum wage is right now for this industry, I don't think you can hire anybody for less than $20 an hour that's competent. So you want competence, and you don't want to be tied down. But I said, I can't afford to pay. Why? Because you're always underselling your product and underselling your service at less than the market value, because you think that by underselling everyone, you get all the work. Yes, you get all the work. It's a no-brainer. If you're dropping your pants every single time, there's somebody out there willing to take advantage of you. So we need to get to the point where we understand that you can't keep underselling yourself, because you will never have enough money. You have to learn sales and marketing, and you have to understand it. Like right now, I'm taking a huge chance at investing into a brand new market that I want to grow next year, but that's $3,000 to $4,000 a month into that market, just pumping it with SEO, pumping it with pages. We're cranking out right now. I'm cranking out we're going to start cranking out 2 blogs a day. Plus we're adding new pages. We just added 50 pages to that market in the last 3 months to invest in that market, because you need to invest in order to get the return. What a lot of you want to do is you want to run a little ad like you used to in the magazine. When I was 17 years old and I had my own lawn care business, I would run a 25 little ad in a magazine, and I would get 5 to 6 calls a week of new clients. I said, it doesn't work that way anymore. What you're wanting is to put out an ad and have an instant return, not doing A/B split testing, not testing ads, not figuring out which ads are actually profitable and which are bringing in the money. And then you're hiring an agency, and they're picking keywords, and they're eating up your budget like it's going out of stock, because the agency doesn't care. It's not their money. They're in the business of eating. We did what you told me. You gave us $2,000 a month. We got you $2,000 worth of clicks. I said, but they're not converting. Well, that's not my problem. That's your problem. You're a lousy salesperson. When the ads do great, we're a hero. And when the ads do horrible, it's the company who can't sell the service. I mean, there's always going to be that friction back and forth. It's your job as a company to know, okay, let's look at what ads did you compare? Ben, are you doing A/B split testing on these ads, figuring out which ads converted the best? Were the ads creative? What irresistible offer did that ad have? And then later, do you have a sales team to go out and upsell those clients? Because chances are, if you're advertising a low price on an initial and a low price on maintenance, you're going to have to make it up with an upsell and a cross sell on all your products. You go in and sell a $49 a month pest control service, you better be selling 10 to 20% of your clients on $1,500 and $2,000 termite bait stations. If you don't, you won't make any money. Now, a lot of people will disagree with me. Says, why are you selling people bait stations? Well, if you know that there are subterranean termites in the area and you're seeing it and you're selling in that area and you're doing termite jobs, it's only a matter of time before that person gets it. Can you sell a preventive service? Are you going in and finding actual termite damage by doing inspections and then telling that client, listen, we found termite. You need to do a service. Are you selling lawn care? Are you adding mosquito control? If you're not cross-selling and you're not upselling, you'll always be in a problem, in a pickle. This is what I did. I said, I got to find myself some other high price services that I can sell. Right now, we're looking at adding 2 more this year. I added 2 last year. I'm adding 2 more this year of high price services that we can sell to clients who want it and can afford it. There's a difference between a client, guys, who wants your service and a client who needs your service. Clients that buy from you are clients that want what you're selling. Clients that are sold are buying what they need. And you need to put yourself as a salesperson in a buying position. Always. You need to put yourself in a buying position. In other words, I'm trying to sell you, but if you don't buy from me, it's no skin off my back. You lose, I win. Because if you tell me no, and I'm going to have to sell it at a price that I'm never going to make a huge profit on, I just rather sell my service to somebody who wants my service. The thing is, you got to put enough into marketing and create a brand and create branding that makes people want to buy what you're selling. In other words, you see it all the time. I was having this conversation with a tech last week on a consultation. I said, look, I go out every single week with my daughter on a date every Thursday. I think for the last 5-6 years, she's 15 now. Since she was like 8 or 9 years old, we started going out on dates. Progressively, her appetite and her taste has expanded to where the food is no longer what it used to cost. And then the price of eating out has gone up like 30%, where we spend $40 to $50 with tip and taxes and everything every single week, me and her. That's about $180 to $200 a month eating out just once a week with my daughter. Now think about this. You're selling a client on a $49 a month service or a $99 every 2 months. And they're calling you and saying, don't come this month because I don't have any bugs and I don't want to pay you if I don't have bugs. That's the difference between a customer that wants you and a customer that needs you. They're only calling you when they need you, and they don't see the need of keeping you maintained. And here's what's going to happen. They cancel this month. Next month, they're calling you back and saying, hey, you need to come and do a service now. But now when you come back to do a service, you find that there's a problem. You need to do a callback or a follow-up to solve it, because now it's going to take 2 services, but they don't want to pay you for the second service. They're expecting you to do the warranty. You shot yourself in the head. You're better off telling that customer, listen, Mr. Customer, here's my service agreement. This is what we agreed, whether you have it in writing or whether it was verbal. I said, I told you this was it. If you cancel on me and you call me back next month. I'm going to charge you for that service. But if I find a problem and you complain about it after I was there, I'm going to charge you to come back. It's in your best interest to keep the service as is and let me do my service because you had a problem for a reason. And now do you want to be in that same position again when you're going to run into this problem? And you shoot yourself in the head. Why? Because you're needing the business because you're starving. So you say yes, you capitulate. And now every time he knows he can do this to you. So what I do is I tell my client, we don't allow skipping of services. We sold you a service that gets and maintains the problem because remember, I charge upfront full. I mean, I make about a half a year's worth on my initials of what the average pest control company makes in an entire year. And then I put you on a maintenance program. 20% of my clients are paying $800 a year just for basic pest control. The rest are paying about $580, but I've already made $400 to $500 on the front end of that business. I could get more business by dropping it, but then I get that customer that says, I want to cancel because you solved my problem. You see the catch-22? So yes, you can make it up front and agree and says, that's fine. I'm going to charge you up front for the service. When you call me back, it will be this again. And if you want it, great. And if you don't want it, great. I don't care. Because I can't afford to give away my services, work twice as hard, and then have my people for less amount of money. We're in the business of profit. If I wanted to make peanuts, I would hire circus monkeys. We're not in the peanut business. We're in the profit business. And if we need to make 20% profit to continue to grow as a small business, if you're making $100,000, $150,000 a year, which is the average business in America, and you're thinking 20%, that's what 20 and $30,000 a year in profit that the average business owner is making. And chances are he's paying himself another 20 to 30. He's making $60,000 a year if he's lucky. Where the average self-employed person is bringing in about $47,000 a year. The average business person that is self-employed only brings in about 6% more on average than he used to when he was working for somebody else. That's the numbers nobody talks about. Everybody's bragging about killing it and crushing it, and nobody's talking about the reality. So what do you need to do? You need to understand the business. Understand the business you're in. So that if you got into business, you got into business. The problem is every employee that you have now and every helper is going to think you're crushing it and you're making so much money, because he sees what you're charging, he sees what you're paying. He doesn't understand all the costs associated with that on the back end. The fact is that if you want to grow, you're going to spend right now about 25% of your budget on marketing. Where does it come from? It comes from the employee. That's the only place you can't negotiate with the manufacturers making the products. You can't negotiate with your insurance company. You can't negotiate with the car manufacturer. I mean, I bought one van 7 years ago, brand new, $18,000. That van today is $38,000. What people don't see is how much that price went up. When you could buy a Toyota trucks for $20,000, $22,000, $24,000. You can't get a Toyota truck today for that. You can't negotiate with your manufacturer. You can't negotiate your insurance. You can't negotiate any service provider. Go negotiate your software. You can't. You can't negotiate it. The only thing that's negotiable is wages. And here's what every self-employed person must understand about wages and prevailing wages. If you can't afford to pay a prevailing wage, understand that wages and value in product is what the market is willing to bear, what the market is willing to pay. Unless you have a USP and a niche, nobody's going to pay you more for the apples to apples comparison. It is if they get 3 quotes and you're the single most expensive quote, they're going to ask you, why are you so much more expensive than the last 2 other guys that I quoted? You better have a compelling, well, you can't say because I'm the best, because I have 25 years of experience. You can't say that because the other guys have 15, 20 years of experience too. They could have just started out in business and underselling it. But that they, you're hearing me that you got 25 years of experience. You went out on your own after you're 50 something, 40 something, 50 something. And now you realize, oh my God, what did I do? But I had no choice because I wasn't going to get paid anymore. I had to walk out because that's the reality, because they can replace you to do maintenance service with two guys what they were paying you. You're of no value unless you were in AIB, you were doing audited facilities, you're an expert termite tech, you're a lead tech, you want to move up to management. You don't want to move up to management, you're stuck. You don't want to move up in sales, you're stuck. You don't want to move up in the company because you just want to be a tech, you're stuck. And now you go work for yourself. And what you realize is you don't know how to sell. So the way you sell is you quote, and you quote the lowest price. You don't even know what the price is in your market. I talk to every single tech that I talk to on a consultation. I said, did you price out your market? He says, well, I got guys here lowballing. I said, how many guys are lowballing? When you look at it and you average it out on 20, you got outliers, and the two outliers on the top are the most expensive guys on the market. You take those out, and then you got usually the low ballers down here. You take those out. What's the average price in the market? You got 18, 15 more companies. Did you figure out what the average price? Why aren't you selling it for 10 to 15, 20% more than the average guy is? Because the reason customers are calling you, I mean, in the sales process, folks, are you asking the client why they called you? Usually it's because, yes, I had a large brand and they suck. They're no longer giving the quality they used to. I'm getting what I get to complain is they're sending, 18-year-old kids. They have no idea what they're doing. And I'm done with this. So you're calling me because you're getting bad service. You're wanting to deal with a smaller company that's local. Let me get this straight. And you're wanting higher service. But you're telling me that my price is too expensive. I mean, sometimes you have to tell that to the client so that they hear it, so that they verbalize it, so they understand the stupidity of their argument. And you're not willing to do that. You need to tell the client, look, Mr. Client, understand that as a small business owner, I can't spread my cost, and I can't work for the same amount of money that they're paying those 18-year-old kids. I have 25 years of experience. I'm 50 years old, and this is what I do. And I'm going to charge you more for giving you better service. But when you call, we're going to be there for you. This is what you're wanting. Well, in order for you to get what you want, here's what you want costs. And you have to tell the customer that. You have to tell your cleaning customers, yes, you don't want it. Why don't you go with one of the franchises? I mean, they offer low prices. Well, no, because I don't like them coming in and rushing with 3 people through my house. So what you're saying is that the amount of time that somebody spends in your home is what you consider quality, not the fact that your house is clean. In order and understand that I'm going to grow and I'm going to hire people, and you're not always going to get me. Is this what you're buying? Because if you're thinking I'm going to be your maid, I'm going to be your slave, and you're going to pay me less than what you would pay a large brand because you're going to take advantage of me, you got another thing coming. Go hire those large brands. You have to be confident in your own sales ability and your skills and what you're doing to be able to compete, to be able to tell and explain to the client why it is they're paying more. And nobody wants to explain to a client why they are paying more. Nobody wants to explain, I can't raise my prices because my customers will leave. No, they won't, because if they go to the other company had to raise their prices too. Everybody's had to raise their prices. So I don't know if I've got anybody here who has any questions that wants to ask. Let me go here. Let me go over here because I actually can't see everybody. I don't think. Oh, yeah. I can see Facebook. It's funny because I can't see comments on. Well, obviously, maybe I don't have any comments on YouTube. I'm on Facebook. Am I on my own Facebook? I know I'm on TikTok. I see you guys here on TikTok. Sorry, I'm not looking at the camera on TikTok, but I'm trying to go live, and I need about 10,000 of you to say yes and subscribe in order for TikTok to let me do a live through an app that they have, which is the TikTok Live streaming app. And we're using a streaming software that we use to stream everywhere. And no, they do not. Let me go here. Let me go there. Whoops. No, that's mine. Let's see where we are. Give me here real quick. That was the earlier one. All right, so I'm in the groups. I know I'm all over the place. I see it on YouTube. But yeah, if you guys got any questions, any comments, we're about 8:40 in, 40 minutes. And the things that we need to talk about in the industry, I think we need to take the conversation beyond what product you're using, what equipment you're using, to more serious conversations. How do we really grow? It's painful. By the way, I'm doing a bunch of courses. I was trying to see how I'm using this, share my screen. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Yeah, let me share this screen. All right. And you won't, on TikTok, you won't be able to see my screen, but here it is. 70% of entrepreneurs are self-employed with no employees. Micro businesses are businesses under between 1 and 9 employees and under $1 million. The percentage of businesses, let me see if I got it, because I'm doing this course going from employee to self-employment. For those of you that want to escape the 9 to 5 and you want to join the 6 to 6 or the 6 to 10 o'clock at night, because entrepreneurs are the only people that work 80 hours a week to avoid working 40 hours a week. Micro business employ fewer than 10 people. Generally, it's about 70, 80%. I think it's about 80% are within 1 to 4 employees. And there's a reason. It's darn hard. The amount of businesses, let's see here. And I'm going through this. By the way, I'm also creating, I don't know if you can see this one. Let me go back on my live. We got for the pest control industry, I've got the biology ant course coming. I'm going to start recording that this week. I'm working on the slides, been working on the slides, getting them together. Let me see if I can actually, let's see here. Do I share this one? I guess I could share the same one. Let's see here. Do this one. Let's take a look. See if you guys can see it. And the biology. I'm using it won't let me because I got to switch it over. But yeah, we got an ant biology coming. By the way, there's the Pest Geek podcast, the Academy. There is the SEO masterclass that actually is turned into an SEO master course. For those of you that want to do SEO, that want to understand SEO, that want to, if you're going to hire an SEO company to take that course, highly recommended for those reasons. I've got April Fool's Day. Yes, I'm doing an SEO webinar on what SEO really is. It's basically the high level overview of the master course to understand all the problems and complexities, so that you could decide if this is something that's even for you at this point in your business. So we're going to be doing that one free live on April 1st. So stay tuned for that. Anybody got any questions on any platform? I'm trying to just look at here to make sure that, let's see here. Why in the groups, in the pages, I'm trying to keep an eye on everything. I see Jose is on. Let's see here. Let me show this. No, let me hide it. Oh, all right. Oh, here we go. Okay. I've experienced so hard what works. I gave up trying to hire someone because they want crazy dollars for cookie cutter with no customer service and don't call you back. Yeah, I know. That's look, here is the reality. and I'm trying to see who this is because I don't know who you are, but to answer that, understand that hiring, once you decide to hire, once you decide, and one of the things you have to come to terms with is that you're not in the business you think you are. Once you decide to grow your business, you're really a sales and marketing company that happens to sell a certain product or service. And most of your time is going to be devoted to sales, marketing, and now recruiting and hiring people and managing. And you switch hats from being a technician to being a business owner and a business manager. And you've got to learn to step away and walk away from it. So let's see here. So when you people don't want to work, your job is not to worry about that guy who isn't working out for you. It's just like knocking on doors. It's just like doing advertising. It's 1 out of 100, and you have to do the work to get the 1 out of 100. And most of you guys don't want to do the work because it's darn hard. I'm not saying this is why 80% of businesses never get past the owner, because you got to get over that mindset that says, nobody wants to work. I said, no, there's one guy out there that wants to work. There's one out there that's going to work for you. The problem is you got to go find him. And you got to do the work of finding him. And that could take you 6 months to a year. You see, so you're hiring people, you give up because the work is darn hard. And this is why most people are fewer than 10. I'm going to end this screen right here. Let's see here. Let's see here. Show. Whoop. Let's see here. More questions. Nope. Let's see here. Yep. Advertising. Yeah. Advertising is frustrating for me because it's so hard to tell what works. I gave up trying to hire someone. Again, the two things that I talk about is the marketing. It's darn hard. The problem is you got to go in and invest the 20, 30, 40, 50 hours to just learn the basics. And between working 50, 60 hours a week on the business where you're wearing 5 hats, you're trusting that an agency knows what they're talking about. Here's the problem. Most of these agencies are hiring the same people that don't want to work to do menial tasks. They're subbing it all over God's creation in all over the world for lower dollars. And they're not really looking out for your best interest. Here's what most agencies, and the reality is about most marketing agencies. They're there to make money, and that's it. In other words, they sell you a minimum viable product that you said you can afford because you bought the advertising based on what you could afford. But understand that you're buying on $150,000 a year, $10,000, $15,000 a month. You're spending 10% of that. So you're spending between $5,000 and $1,000, $500 and $1,500, and that doesn't get you anything. When the agency only makes money on people that are spending $10,000 to $15,000 a month. When you have a $500 ad spend, you're insignificant. Nobody's going to pay attention to you. Everybody that's going to say yes to you is going to say yes to your illusion, not the reality. So you're getting what you paid for, in other words, because you don't know the reality of what it really costs. You have the illusion of what you would like it to cost. You got the illusion of how it should work, and the result you should get based on no data. In other words, if you're not running ads and you're not getting the data back, which takes 2 to 3 months of running ads and invest $2,000 to $3,000 in ads, in order to get the data back, to analyze the data, and then find the negative keywords, find out which A/B split test, which ad performed best. Was the ad ever any good to begin with? Who designed the ad? Did you tell the agency, no, this is the ad I want because I want to fill it with all this crap that doesn't sell? And you run these ads and the agency says that will never sell. I don't want to do a $49 a month ad. I don't want to use bait. Unless you use bait, you're not going to catch a lot of fish. You got to throw chum in the water to get the fish to come, and then you can throw the net. You got to be able to throw it. I'm then see all of a sudden go down to 2 to 4 techs and are happier than ever in business. Look, that works for you. I know a lot of people. Look, a 2 to 4 person company is a nice size company that's going to produce. If you've got between 600,000 and $1 million, with 4 or 5 techs, you can make a pretty decent living for yourself, making 150, even 200,000 a year, taking all that money, saving about $50,000 a year, and buying one house a year instead of putting $50,000 into marketing. I get it. Not everyone can grow a business large. The percentage, let me look. I got a number here. Give me a second. I'm going to pull this up for you. I've got the stats. And by the way, you can verify all my stats because all right, here he goes. I'm gonna go ahead and show you this slide. I'm glad that I can answer these questions for you guys. All right, there it is. 7.9% of all small businesses make over $1 million a year. In 2018, 1 out of 10 small businesses reportedly made over $1 million a year. Scaling to 1 million means you got to beat out the other 91%. So it's between 7 and 10% of businesses ever make it to $1 million. So the idea that everyone is going to be the next business millionaire is a lot of sunshine up your tailpipe with, rainbows and hoping you're going to crap out a purple unicorn. I mean, the purple unicorns are purple unicorns for a reason. There's a lot of DNA in there. I mean, that's the reality. It's darn hard. And most of you don't have the support system at home. You can't bring your wife on. You can't bring your kids on. You can't bring your cousins on. You can't do a lot of the things that other people can do that have the money or that just go out and sell and become sales and marketing agencies and could care less. You notice why you can't find most SEO companies, on YouTube, on Google. They can't rank. The competition is too big. Why there's no, most of the ad agencies don't have GMBs and ranking, because they would get half of their 5 stars would be gone. Why their Facebook groups are, they've got all this business, but they got, 50 followers, 70 followers, 100 followers. Because they're in it for the money. They're not in it really. They can't devote themselves. Only the companies that really, really go up there and say, look, I'm only going to sell to a company doing $2 to $4 million a year. That's my customer. Those are the real serious ones. The ones that are saying, we're going to charge you $15,000, $20,000 a month. They're real advertising specialists. They're not somebody who decided to work for an agency one day and quit and says, I'm going to start running ads for people. And who cares if half of them don't make it? Because half will drop off. The biggest problem ad agencies have is that they lose 50% of their clients within the first 6 months. It's no different than the large companies, right? Because all they're in it for is for the money. They're not in it for your best interest. This is why I did my own in-house agency. I got a guy right now, buddy, who says, I want you to do, I'm paying $3,000. I'm not going to do your SEO because we only do it for our brands in-house, and that's it. I'm not looking to be an ad agency. My internal, the reason I became my own internal ad agency is because 4 companies had tried and failed. I couldn't find anybody to do it. I did it better than they did. So I decided to invest in that. Anything else? Anybody out here? Let me see. So, yeah, if you're looking to start up, my suggestion for everybody that is looking to start up, that wants to quit their 9 to 5, that wants to quit the job, wants to become, look, don't go out and try to reinvent the wheel. If you're already, go start a business in something you've been doing that you really know how to do and you're passionate about doing. It only took me 17 career changes, job changes in my life. I mean, I remember having a job every 6 months when I was a kid, when I was, 17, 18, 19, 20. And then I started getting more responsible around 19, 20. And that was expected of us back then. I'm 53 years old. Today, you can be 28 years old, not have a career, not gone to college, have 10 jobs, not know what you're going to do, and still live home with mom and dad. And it's okay. That's where we live. That's why you're going to find it's going to be because we depend on those people that are between the ages of 21 to 30. And what we're finding is there's a new study that came out. There's a couple of them on hiring Generation Z. They're getting out of college now with unrealistic expectation. What do you see people doing? Hiring older employees. Here's the problem with hiring older employees. They demand a lot more money. And the tide is changing where people are like, well, we don't want older people. We're wanting older people now. But the problem is these older people are also working in fast food. And now they're saying we need a living wage at 50 something years old because we can't afford to work. I said, understand this. This is going to be unpopular, but businesses don't owe you a living wage. A business was set up in a certain way, in a certain model. So this is why you now go to a fast food restaurant that the food is crappy and you pay $15 for a meal. I mean, I'd rather pay $30 and sit down at a restaurant than pay a crappy meal that's going to kill me in the next 10 years and eat that. But not everybody can afford it. So those are the situations you find yourself in as a small business owner, the reality of it, that you're going to have to hire these kids now that are expecting to make $24 an hour. But why? Because they can go to a fast food place and make $18 an hour now. You're competing with that. And remember, if you're in business, you got to understand one thing. You're in competition now. You're in competition to eat every single day. And a lot of people can't stomach that. This is why only about, 6 to 10% of Americans own a business. They're self-employed. People can't stomach it. The fact that I got to compete to eat every single day, they thought they had it hard, but understand when you're an employee, you work for wages and it's prevailing wages. In other words, I'm going to pay you what I can go out there and get somebody else to do the exact same work. As long as there's a market, then I'm going to pay you that. I'm not going to pay you 20, 30, 40% when you don't know what you're doing. When I got to pay that guy, that I better be able to justify my prices to my client and say, this is the reason why we charge X. And everything is in line because I can't pay more in South Florida than a 20% payroll for technicians, plus adding on workman's comp insurance and taxes that I have to pay when I end up at around 22, 23, 25%, depending on what I'm selling. I can't go above a certain number. If I do, then I won't have a profit. Sure, I'll be bragging about how much money my company makes, and then I will have zero profit for me. I don't have a salary. So we can brag all day long about making $1 million. And if you're $1 million in debt because you borrowed it, your company isn't worth squat. You can brag all you want about how much you're making. Anything else? We're about 3 minutes on the wire. I'm going to be going live. I'm going to be going off. Oh, here we go. All right. We need some seasoned techs. As you know, some seasoned techs have bad habits. In your opinion, would you hire a green tech or a vet? I know there are pros and cons to both. Curious what you think. For the first hire, green. If you're in my boots and you're a small business owner, you cannot afford to hire a tech that you have to untrain from the bad habits. You have twice the work. Sorry, that's the reality, because the problem is they probably went to work for a company who you left, that type of company, to go start up, because the reason you didn't want to go into management is because you were going to babysit a bunch of kids that just got thrown at you that nobody trained right. And now you have to go and untrain these people. It depends. If I was going to be doing AIB audited facilities, I definitely want a seasoned tech. One that has experience in that, because you're getting a different level of tech. See, when it's kind of like the same equivalent. Look, if you wash windows and you don't have the skills to do anything more than wash windows, then go start a window washing business where you're going to make more money washing windows. You're going to have to become a salesperson and sell the window washing. But that's different. A window washer is different in business than an electrician who had to go through a journeyman master's and all this. And now he's worth $100 an hour $150 an hour as a technician plus parts. It's a totally different game. So when you're hiring for your first time, you definitely want green. Because with the temptation, the idea, the illusion is if I hire an experienced person, I don't have to manage them. They're going to manage themselves. No, they're not. You can't abdicate your responsibility as an owner and assume that a guy you hired with bad habits from a company that he was used to sitting in that truck and he was, ghosting the account, sitting there for 15 minutes in a truck, not doing the work because he knew he could get away with that. You're going to inherit a lot of that. You better be darn good at sniffing that stuff out really quickly and getting rid of that guy. The problem is it took you 3 months to find him, and now you're going to let him sit in that truck, and you're going to be afraid to fire him and get rid of him. The instant he's never going to work out, you're not going to get rid of him because now you have to go through this pain and process again. And it's like giving birth. I wouldn't know anything about that. I'm a guy. Let's see here. We'll end in 15. Oh, so they're giving me an hour. Let's see here. Okay. Boom. All right. So they wanted to know if I was, in my opinion, a guy who has about a year in his feet, little wet, easier to train than a green and someone established bad habits. It depends. The question is, if he's a year in, you got to ask yourself some hard questions. Why is he leaving? Is it because he didn't cut it in that environment? Is it because he is no good and they discovered that he's no good, and do you want to inherit that? In other words, you got to do the work of a manager. You got to put that guy to the test. In other words, figure out the best guy you can hire for the money, do the interviews, do the background checks, do everything. But at the end of the day, look, I've hired 2 guys in the last 3 months that one didn't make it 3 weeks. The other one was done. Because the moment I left them alone, they were doing whatever they wanted to do. With the moment I saw that, I said, this person it's just going to get worse from there. So when I train you and I tell you, this is the way I want you to do it, and then you go out and do whatever you want to do. And these were greenhorns, but people who are set in their ways, who decide they're going to do what they want to do, and they want to be an entrepreneur in my company, they can't be. You want to be an employee, you're going to be an employee. You want to be an entrepreneur, go start your own company. I'll help you. This is why I do what I do. Because I'm not, but you can't do it at my company. I've seen more than the usual leave larger companies to a mom and pop due to tech burnout. Yes, tech burnout is a reality. The problem is, here's what I've experienced with hiring burned out techs, because I've done that too. The problem is, once they're burned out on the industry. They're wanting a place to go coast. And the question is, what's your culture like? See, if you're a growth company and you're growing, it's usually managed chaos. If you're not a growth company and you're just maintaining, I got a technician who is awesome. He wants to grow, he wants to do more, but he's never going to be in management. He doesn't want that responsibility. What he wants is more work. The problem is he's young. He can do it now. He can do it for another year or two. Then he will get burned out. He's going to go do something else. I already know he's planning on looking at another career option, even though he's making, this next year he'll make 70 grand, but it'll burn you out but he's only working 40 hours a week, and he's only working Monday through Friday. We give weekends off 40 hours, and I try to make the most for my people that I can. You see, because I want the best people. I failed multiple times hiring, finally hired a recruiter. Yes. And a recruiter is another way. Again, you got to go through certain recruiters, because certain recruiters, remember, if they're in it for the money, they could care less if they find you a qualified person. They said, look, I find you a qualified person. It's your job if you can't keep them. And then it's always that back and forth. So there's always two. But yes, I mean, Alicia, she does a lot of work for the industry now. Alicia Turner. Look her up. I think she's been on my podcast. And she does that. And you find these people who are great human beings, who are in it, are really vested. They have values, and you just got to interview everybody like everybody else. You can't assume that it's going to work. I mean, I've used recruiters before, and the people that got me were terrible. Remember, we're hiring most of the time, guys. We're hiring, we're hiring low skilled workers. I mean, we're not hiring guys who would have been engineers if they had the chance. We're not hiring people that have bachelor's degrees in biosciences. We're hiring people that we need them to do a certain job. We need to train them. Think about dirty jobs. It's every job pretty much that we do as self-employed people was a technical job. It wasn't in high tech. You know, we were doing pavers, and we decided to go do pavers and bust our knees for 8 hours a day. I mean, I've done pavers, I've done fences, I've done siding, I've done decks. I know I've done electrical signs, I've done neon signs. Everything I've ever done pretty much was a tech job. I just happened to get into sales because I can make more money, and I can get in front of a camera, I can talk, and that's why I do a podcast, and I can get in front of a large audience and talk, and I don't have a problem with any of that. And this is why I can do what I can do. Not everybody can do it. And we have to be cognizant that we're not hiring rocket scientists here, that we have to have SOPs in place. We have to simplify the process. In other words, you do have to dumb it down. And some of you have to dumb it down, and you refuse to do that because you have your standards up here. And it says, I want everybody to be at my standard. Understand you're never going to hire. If you could hire another you, he's going to take over your business. Hey, man, I have one tech, which is my brother. And what's your opinion about hiring family members? My brother is learning a lot, really likes the job. And look, if it works, it works. It's no different than hiring, just as long as we're clear that this is my business. I'm hiring you, and I'm going to treat you the same as an employee, and I love you, and if you screw up, I got to fire you, and if that's going to hinder the relationship, let's not do this. But the people don't want to have the difficult conversation. I see it all the time. You accept certain things from your family members, and I've hired family, but I make it clear. This is my business. You can't do this, this, and this. You're jeopardizing my family's future. You're jeopardizing my mortgage. You're jeopardizing this. I will not allow it to you to jeopardize anything. It's my brand, my reputation. It'll get done my way. If you want to do it your own way, let me know. I'll help you start up. I'll give you all the knowledge I know. Again, when we're here, we're here. And those are the things that you have to have, those difficult conversations. I love the questions, guys, by the way. I mean, these are very elementary questions, but they're fundamental because most people just don't get it. And then when they get to this point, I find that where everybody's messing up is on the fundamentals. Nobody is screwing up at the high level. Everybody is screwing up at the fundamentals. We got to get the fundamentals right. This is why I think it's so important to keep repeating myself, if I have to 100,000 times, to make sure that people get it, people understand it, because we're only going to learn through repetition. I'm going to go ahead. It is in 9:07. I love you guys, but I actually have to do some work that makes money on this. And I do, guys on TikTok, thank you so much for being on. Hopefully, if I can get enough likes, I can get enough people subscribed, I can get enough people on here. TikTok is going to let me do a live streaming through their service, but they have the requirements. I'm going to see if I can get this going by next week, seeing how many we can get. On certain channels, I'm still trying to get on there. LinkedIn is giving me headache, but I think I got on. So I hope this helps you guys. This is the reality of owning a service business and being in business, being a small person. Guys, the struggles are there. We're not going to get, why do I do what I do every single day? Is because I remember telling one of my ex-wives, I said, I will sell water on a street corner before I ever go back on a salary, go back to work for somebody on payroll, or go back to corporate. I pretty much become a professional bridge arsonist, where I burned all my bridges, where I can't go back. I have to go forward. I have no choice, because I won't do it. And so one of the greatest things for me is having my freedom, not having the money. What motivates me is the freedom, not the money. If it was the money, I could go back to corporate and make a lot more. Trust me. But I don't. And this is it. The challenges, again, of the headaches, the sleepless nights, the problems, the gray hairs, the losing my head. It's all a result of a lot of personal stress, but also a lot of the business stress. And the business stress actually is a lot easier. I can manage that than the personal stress at home and things, family related and human issues are the ones that really do you in. So you got to just create systems to be able to manage it all. And everybody's got to be on the same page, and there's no balance. It's a balancing act every day. I'm gonna let you go, guys. Love you. This is Frank the Service Geek, wishing you a pestacular day.